Hi, we're the Brights coming to you live on a different day.
HDTV.
On a different day.
Coming to you live on HBO.
What?
I'm just making stuff up.
I know. I thought you were going to have some really cute acronym for HBO.
Well, no, we did sign a contract with HBO just to let everybody know, and so now we can watch all the movies we want for $19.99 a month.
Except for that joke sold. I think they're actually like $9.99 a month now, probably.
What?
Because everybody's home with the COVID, or not home with the COVID, but home because of it. But so we are coming out to you live on a Monday night because we've had some crazy
Because
busy
we
days.
just love Mondays.
And we yesterday we went to we had a
gun
We had
date.
a very romantic date yesterday. We had a gun date.
She spoke my love language.
Yes,
Guns
and
coffee.
And I did really good.
You did.
I was like almost a perfect score, so pretty amazing.
Yeah, you were a good shooter.
Yeah, well, so watch out. I don't shoot warning shots.
Because ammo's too expensive.
It's too expensive, right. So, but we had a really fun day all day, but it was all day because we got our handgun license, and it was like 7:30 in the morning till 6 o'clock at night. But we did it, and it was really fun. And then today we've just been busy, and I had a webinar all day, another live webinar tomorrow. So he's like, we're getting on here right now.
We're making stuff happen.
Yeah, make it happen. Make it rain.
Not yet.
Yeah, it might drizzle a little bit.
We're making it really damp.
But we've been on a more serious note. We've been since everyone's been home during this Corona time. Richard was on the phone Saturday evening with 3 different people, 3 different couples, or just the guys calling Richard, and with marriage problems, people that are really struggling in this time. And we know that some people are having a really good season during all this, and they're growing close together. It's giving them the time that they've needed, maybe to talk, to spend time with family, to do some stuff. But some couples are doing just the opposite. Like whatever was not working out with them, they've just taken it to.
I think they're just falling apart because they were able to put their attentions towards work or kids or something else.
They kind of stayed busy before,
yeah,
just doing life. And now it's like, oh my gosh, this person's here all the time. And it can be, we don't want to make light of it, but it can be a really bad time for some people, but it can also be really good. This could be the time. I mean, what is the one thing, for most of us, one of the things that we were really wishing we had, and I think not just before this Corona, but just in life in general, is time. Like we always want to have more time.
Say hand sanitizer.
You thought I was gonna say sex, but yeah, hand sanitizer. But I think that there's a lot of people. Now you got me out my train of thought all off. But we always wanted more time. It just seems like we were busy. We had things going on. I know for us, we were busy a lot, and we wish we had more time. Not just so much with each other because we got to spend a lot of time together, but we wanted more time with our kids, or more time to cook, or more time to write. We were writing a book, just different things. So now we have that time, and how we use that time right now is so important. But we see so many couples that are struggling, that are wanting to get divorced. I don't know where you're going to go during a pandemic and get divorced. That part I don't even understand, because
they're not even having court. You can't even get divorced right now.
But they're wanting to separate like that. Now you're going to even cause more financial problems, and it's not, divorce is not the, what do they say, symptom of the.
It's not the answer. It's a symptom
of the problem. Right. So it doesn't, just because you get divorced, everything gets cured. If you have kids, you're still going to be, you're going to be with this person for a long time, even if you get divorced from them. Yeah. So these couples are saying that these are their 2 choices. They're thinking either that.
I can tell you one thing, and I know this for a fact. When you get divorced and you have kids, it jacks your kids up.
Yeah.
For a very long time.
Yeah.
All right. We've got adult kids, and they're jacked up. And I'm just being.
Well, they're not jacked up as human beings, but they've gone through some emotion. You need to clarify that, because otherwise, kids are all jacked up, but they're hurting. They have things that from the time that they're young, that if divorce is hurting them, even if you don't see it because you're so busy in your own stuff, you're not seeing it.
And you're thinking, oh, they're just kids. They're little. They'll get over it.
Yeah. Now, if you're in a relationship where there's alcohol abuse or drug abuse or physical abuse or that kind of there's different variables that the kids do need. They're probably going to be worse off if you're in that situation. But Rich and I left relationships like that. Then we get together thinking, well, we're going to make it different. But the kids have hurts from those divorces and things that happen. That we were so busy in our own stuff from our exes and then our new hot messiness that we weren't paying attention to the kids. We were paying attention to it, but we weren't in tune, I think, to some of their emotional needs because they were little and they seemed like they were fine, like they were so resilient. But it didn't really manifest so much, I think, when they were younger. But as they became teenagers and they got older, and then it takes like 30 years to undo some of that, is what studies say. So some of these couples that we're talking to think they have two choices. They're either going to stay miserable, stay in the marriage and stay miserable, or they're going to get a divorce. And we were looking back, and it's heavy on our heart when we hear this. And sometimes people that we've known a long time that we just think, gosh, we just want to help them so much, but they just have this mindset of they just think that that's the only answer. So we started looking back through our own marriage and the different seasons that we've been in and how there were times that we thought we wanted to get divorced or we thought that was the only answer. I mean, remember how it was like we just thought that if we could just...
Last week.
It's not true.
That's what you said.
What?
I'm just messing with you.
Oh, I'm like, no, I didn't. But we can remember those times where we were hurting and we really just thought we wanted to get away from this other person. The divorce to us,
the reason, if looking back, the reason I wanted to get divorced was because of the hurt and the pain and the arguing and I just wanted it to stop. And I knew that if we were divorced, it would stop because I wouldn't have to see you anymore. And I wouldn't have to talk to you about stuff anymore.
We would end that pain.
And it would have ended that pain, but I would have never grown. I would have never stopped doing the things that I was doing that weren't beneficial to a marriage, that weren't honoring my husband. They weren't honoring my wife. They weren't honoring my God. They weren't honoring my children. I'd have never learned anything. I'd have just kept perpetuating it to the next person, to the next person, to the next person. So by staying, what we did is I saw a side of you that I didn't think I would see. The love part, the grace part,
And we want. I definitely want to get to that because we saw there's an exciting new study that we saw that said they did a study with couples and they had them rate their marriages on a scale of 1 to 7, and 1 being the most unhappy. And those who rated their marriage, Boy, Richard's over here like moving around because he's.
I have ADD, AGE.
Is that even the couples that rated their marriages as a 1, 5 years later, they had incredible turnarounds. Most of those couples still had incredible turnarounds 5 years later. They stayed together. If they stayed together, in fact, 77% of those giving the marriage a very unhappy 1 rated their marriage as a 7 5 years later. So their marriage was better later on.
But you know what? There's an old wives' tale that marriage just gets better as time goes on. And that's not true. We have to be intentional.
You have to be. But sometimes, don't you think it's just like a season? Like they said that some of these couples that they did the study.
Life is just seasons,
Yeah, and some of the couples that they did this study said that they didn't really do anything. They didn't have any breakthrough therapy. They didn't do anything majorly different. In fact, many did relatively little. But they just stuck it out and things got better. So Richard and I wrote a book just recently with our friend Joel Mom, and we were going to call it Really Marriage Does Get Better. But it's actually, we said marriage doesn't just get better most of the time. We said really marriage can get better. And so to what Richard was saying, so they're saying a percentage of people that just waited did get better. Like they probably because they were in a bad season or, something was just going on and it actually got better. But for a lot of couples, 3 of the couples he talked to this weekend, it didn't just get better for them. They've been married, some of them long time, some of them 10 to 20 years, 20 something years. And it hasn't just gotten better. They've had times where they were in a bad slump and it got better over time, but they didn't really do all the intentional things for it to get better, to be solid, to have that foundation. And what were you going to say while ago? Yours. So we have to work at it. That's what you're saying. You have to be intentional. it's just, you've got to work at it. You got to do those things. But you also have, sometimes it is just waiting to get through things. And then another thing is, some of the couples, their perspective, or sometimes with couples, like for us, it got better over time as we changed some stuff. You know, it wasn't like it just got better because we stuck it out. I mean, we did get through some seasons by sticking it out. But then, as we stayed together, we had to actually work on some intentional things that we had to do. And one of the things they said, personal happiness, like, we took the personal happiness off of, like, I took that off of Richard. Like, he didn't have to make me happy and be my everything. And I wasn't trying to be his everything. Like, we had other hobbies and interests. We started doing comedy. You started fishing. I mean, we started doing some other things where it wasn't constantly us constantly picking on each other all the time. And we're going to say something. So I had some notes here. I just wanted to say. So that was one of the things, was that personal happiness, the perspective changed one of the spouses. Maybe not both spouses, but somebody decided to do things different. And I know with us, I had to decide to do things different. And so what were you going to say a while ago? You were starting to talk about that, about the, you felt the love.
I had to be intentional, yeah. So when I felt the love and I felt you being different, then that's when God started speaking to my heart and letting me realize that some of the things that I was doing in my life weren't right, and they weren't beneficial to marriage. You know, it was going to destroy our marriage if I kept doing it.
Mm-hmm. That's good. And, you know, some of it was small stuff. Some of it was just changing communication and talking to each other and being intentional about having time together, being intentional about dating, listening to each other's heart, praying together for us. It was a big thing. Y'all hear us talk about that all the time. And we forget sometimes when we do these videos, we're telling you all these things, but some people probably don't know our story. Like there was a time, it wasn't like, oh, they're like this great couple, they're a marriage couple and they have all these things they can tell you about. We lived in hell, basically. I mean, we struggled with stuff, with alcohol and drugs and pornography and not unfaithful with other people, but just mistrust, I guess probably a better word, about things. We didn't trust each other with money. We didn't trust each other with anything.
Yeah,
you know,
a lot of anger.
A lot of things. And then we had problems with exes and then the kids, and we were on the same page. And so we had to start changing some of those little things.
Blended family.
Yep. And then one of the things you just said was about that you had to change some things. So one of the things that they talked about in the study was that people changed credible threat to consequences to bad behavior. So when this study, I mean, sometimes women have bad behavior, but in this particular study, it was men that had bad behavior, whether it was partying with their friends or infidelity or just an occasional, some of them had slight abuse. But when those people changed those behaviors, but it wasn't because they just changed on their own. The wives actually had to put their foot down and get boundaries. And that happened with us, right? Mm-hmm. So I remember being really nervous to ever have a boundary with Richard or to get upset about stuff because he would have a way of getting angry at me. And then I thought, oh, we're going to split up. But if I had known the power, because you always talk about that, about how until I don't want to say put my foot down, but until I had changed things.
Right. When she just said, no more, you've got to choose your children. And she didn't even say me. She was like, you just have to choose your children or this behavior, because if I'm gone, I'm not going to be in their life. So, you'll find somebody else and you're going to have to deal with it. Your kids are going to be with you no matter where you go. So you need to change that behavior for them. Don't even do it for me, and just all those things that came along with that, And
that's what Dr. Dobson wrote a book about, that love must be tough. And he talked about that, about women just having boundaries. They took firm action and they just said that, no, I'm not putting up with it anymore. Like something in this has to change, and that they just weren't going to tolerate that behavior
I think
anymore.
It could go both ways though. I think if the wife is the one doing it, I think the husband can do the same thing and just say, you know what,
Absolutely.
I'm not putting up with this anymore.
Absolutely.
I'm standing for my marriage, and we are going to get healthy in our marriage, and these are the steps that we're going to do.
Yeah.
And then just start doing that and start working your way towards that, and it's not always easy.
I wish we had done that a lot earlier. I wish that I had my self-esteem had been, or maybe I had more self-confidence or more I was so worried that if I pressured him, or if I didn't want to I was trying to give him ultimatums, and those didn't work because I never followed through with them, and I didn't know what the difference between a boundary and an ultimatum were. And so, but now looking back, if I had just known my own power and I had trusted God and just rested in that, and like, well, if he leaves, he leaves, but it would be better than having this life that we have. And I think whenever we got that strong thing, when I had a firm action that said, no, not this is the line in the sand, things changed. Like not overnight, but over the course of a few years, things little by little changed because Richard realized he couldn't push me around. And he wasn't pushing me around like physically, but he realized that he couldn't bully me with his actions.
Manipulate you, and stuff that I was really good at.
What are those things they call the intimidator?
Yeah, something like that.
The Jimmy Evans thing where the person
I can't remember.
Intimidates, like you say something and then the other person, if you act like that, if you say that, or if you bring up that certain subject, this is what you're going to get. And I knew there were certain things.
An intimidator and an internalizer.
Yeah. Tell about that. You tell it better than me.
Well, no, I mean, an intimidator gets loud and boisterous and throws things around and gets angry. And that's their way of...
Or stonewall.
Right? Well, no, stonewalling is stonewalling. An intimidator gets very angry. Our son is an intimidator. When I'm talking to him, he gets very angry to shut me down, but I already know what that type of behavior is, so I know I have to come in at a different angle, because I don't just be quiet and be like, oh, he's angry. I need to get that out. Otherwise, it turns into resentment. So I'll, come around in a different way, in a way that he was able to receive what I'm trying to tell him.
But we learned a lot of that from
from marriage class, and then the internalizer takes all that in and takes it in and takes it in and takes it in until you can't take any more in. You can take a glass and fill it, with sand or with big rocks. There was, one professor somewhere, from what I heard, did it, and then they go, can you add anything else? They said, nope, it's full to the top. Then he started putting sand in it, and the sand started going through. They filled it with sand all the way to the top. No, nothing else can go in. Then they put water in it. But eventually it gets to the end where you can't put anything more. And a friend of ours, this old man, I remember him saying, man, you eat till you get a belly full and then you can't take no more. Yeah. And you don't ever want to get to that point, because when you get to that point, man, a lot of times it's almost too late, and I don't want to be somebody who's just negative about it, but we've seen it so many times where the wife is just given and given and given and given, and then she finally says, I'm done. Right. And then the husband comes and he wants to go to church, and he wants anything. To, what classes do you have? I'm going to do, I'm going to get my marriage back. And the wife is done, and it doesn't have to get to that point. So, man, if you're listening to this and you know that you have a wife who's trying and trying and trying, or vice versa, the husband who's trying and trying and trying, but you're just your pride is kicking up, man, you got to stop that, because it's not going to end well. Marriage, having a divorce is not the answer. All that does is leave shrapnel and brokenness, and it just destroys you even more. And nobody talks about that. They think divorce is the answer. We're going to be free. I'm not going to have to worry about that. That's not true. You've got to take all that pain and learn how to deal with all that pain on a daily basis. And seeing your kids in pain, and seeing it's bad. Okay, divorce is not the answer.
And then you're going to drag that into
the next relationship. Except now there's even less trust, less everything. So it's, you're a shorter fuse, right? You don't have as much grace. You don't have as much mercy. So, man, when that fuse gets lit, you go off now. And then you leave and divorce, and you get somebody else. Your fuse is even shorter, and that's why it doesn't say, oh, when you get your fourth marriage, you have a 100% chance of making it. No, you've got a 15% chance of making it. So
right.
It's just,
but there are couples that, like you said, that they get a belly full, or the one person gets a belly full. And I remember getting a belly full. And honestly, I thought that I couldn't find love back. I thought things had gone too far.
I remember that.
And even people were trying to, we were going to marriage classes. We were teaching marriage classes. And I just thought, I don't even have that love for him. Like, I don't like him anymore. Like, he's hurt me too much. He's chipped away at the statue, and now the statue has fallen. And even God can't bring this love. Like, I feel like you've got to fall in love, and the love is gone. I am not in love with him anymore. But that's such a lie of Now you can decide in your mind and just become hard-headed and have pride and say, nope, I'm not going to do it. I don't love him anymore. But I promise you, with God in the picture, if you turn it over to God, he will. And I don't want people that don't, aren't super spiritual, but I know for us at work, God restored our marriage. God gave us new love for each other. I can't even believe that we would be missing out on what we have right now had we quit years ago, several times, and gosh, I mean, we would have missed out on
the best part of our life,
the best of our lives,
most fulfilling, most rewarding, most exciting, most spiritual, most connected, most greatest, most. It's phenomenal.
Yeah.
All right. The coronavirus, it's affecting a lot of people, and it's hurting a lot of people. People are losing family members, right? But man, we're able to stay together, and we're able to love each other, and we're able to give hope to people because we're in a place that's good. We're in a place that's solid, and we have hope in our life. We have hope in our marriage. We have hope in our children. And yes, I was ranting earlier because, oh my gosh, it has been a week from Hades with these kids, and, I'm just like, I love my kids, but I will punch a son.
No, you wouldn't.
I know.
You would
I
not.
felt like it.
He's 25. He'll punch you back. That's the problem.
Can I spiritually punch him? Well, you know what? I can in prayer. I'll spiritually punch him in prayer. I would never hit my kids or my wife.
Never have. Thank the Lord.
That's right.
But, just saying that you might think that love is lost, and the world talks about being in love, but being in love is overrated. Like that in love feeling that when you meet him and all you ever do is have butterflies and it's all in love. In love, that feeling that you get at the beginning, that's an emotional love. That's just a roller coaster. One day you're all so happy, and then they did something to upset you, or he doesn't call, or he doesn't do whatever, and then now you're disappointed. And then she didn't give you enough attention, and now you're disappointed. That's that emotional in love thing. When you love your spouse and it's on a deeper level, it's not about just your emotions of today I love him and tomorrow what have you done for me lately. It's you've decided to love them.
You've been
regardless.
through some stuff.
You've got
some history. You've gone through some things and you've succeeded, and you start to celebrate those little victories that you have. And before you know it, you string along and you've got a bunch of victories. And before you know it, man, y'all have worked through some stuff, and you've overcome some stuff, and you've given grace and mercy and forgiveness with some stuff, and you've healed some hearts. You've healed some brokenness that before you were arguing and fighting and carrying resentment because you were broken and you were hurt, and the only way you could to manifest that was in retaliation and anger and frustration. But man, once all that goes away, man, then the love sets in, and the healing and the hope and all the good stuff, right? And the enemy's lying to us to try to deceive us, to tell us that, man, you need to get away from that. Remember that person you used to date? You should have married them. Mm-hmm. And then you go and you meet so-and-so, and then all of a sudden they tell you about Bob that you left. He starts saying, well, Bob was a pretty good guy that you left over there, and now you divorced Bob and you went with so-and-so, and man, look at Bob over there. And that's how the enemy works, man.
Yeah. Yeah. And there are situations where we're talking to a couple of those couples too, where we're not encouraging them to get divorced, but if there's narcissistic things that are happening, like behavior or toxic behaviors, sometimes you need for a season to either be away from that person for a season. Sometimes people need to get divorced and then they can get remarried. God can restore that marriage. And we've done videos about narcissistic things and about toxic relationships. Those don't just get better unless you get some kind of really good deep therapy and both people are teachable and both people are admitting that something is wrong. You're not just pointing. If you're pointing the finger at the other person only, there's usually a problem. Even if that other person had I used to point the finger, it's Richard's fault. He's doing all these things because he had bad behavior, because he was drinking, he was partying, doing all these things. But I had enough of my emotional things. I had so many that needed to be worked on too, but we were constantly looking at his. So if you're just pointing the finger at one or the other, you need to take a long, deep look at yourself. I'm just telling you this from my own
Because broken emotional people will find and marry broken emotional people.
And we were too broke
and people. Healthy emotional people will find and marry healthy emotional people.
And when we first met, it was like, Richard had one crutch and I had one crutch, and we were both
They
so
were
broken.
duct tape.
We were like,
Had some
"Look,
baling
together,
wire.
baby, we got 2 crutches. Like we're gonna help. We're gonna help each other. We're gonna cure each other. We're gonna solve all our problems and get through all this." Hot mess.
Yeah,
you
those
know.
crutches started falling apart.
Oh my
quick.
gosh, those crutches. So we just want to, that sounded kind of ended on a negative note, but we want to encourage you guys that are in a.
Hey, if we can make it, like it says in the book, anybody
Yes,
can make
yeah.
it.
Oh, that reminds me. Yeah. So really, marriage can get better. So in this book, it's 2 small steps that can bring love back to life, and these are the things that worked for our marriage. We did a lot of stuff over the years of learning about marriage stuff and learning about communication and conflict, and we continue to learn about it. We continue to talk about it. But there were 2 main key points that we did that got us back on track and then got us to where we are now. So we just thank you guys for tuning in. I hope that you'll watch our video. You'll share our videos. And we also have a podcast. We have a Really Marriage Can Get Better podcast on Apple Podcasts. So you can watch that. It's got a 5-star rating. And we tell some stories that we haven't even told, I think, on the videos. That just things that had come up during that conversation. So it's a great 6-part series, and we're about to start another series about a podcast. We have our YouTube channel, Bride or Marriage. So please share our videos, subscribe to our channel, text BRIGHT, the word BRIGHT, BRIGHT, to 66866, and we will send you those videos. And what else? There's a lot of stuff. Sarah's on there. Hey, Sarah, love you too. So anyway, there's a lot of good stuff. I was trying to think there was one more thing. And hopefully we'll all be back in person soon, and we'll be doing marriage.
2024.
Yeah, in 2021, we plan on doing marriage conferences again and comedy date nights and being back in the saddle again. So until then, hey, we were even thinking about doing maybe some webinars, some marriage webinars. So let us know if that's something that you might be interested in, because we like to kind of put that together. Try one of those. Right?
Sounds good.
Yep. All right. We'll see you guys. Thanks for tuning in.
Peace.
Peace out.